Welcome, everyone. I'm so honored to be here in Lithuania with all of you. Builders, engineers, creators, and people shaping the future of technology. This talk is about self-leadership in the age of AI and what it means to design your life with intention. Before we begin, let me ask you something. By a show of hands, who here considers themselves a leader? Okay. Beautiful. Now, whether your hand is up or not, I want you to take a moment and check in with yourself. What does self-leadership mean to you? Not the job title, not the responsibilities, but your definition. The way you lead your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your life. Hold that definition. We're going to expand it today. Before we go any further, I think it's important to acknowledge the moment of time we're living in. The world, as we knew it, is gone. We are standing in a moment as defining as the birth of the internet, as disruptive as the rise of social media, an epic shift that will divide our memories into before AI and after AI. And whether we realize it or not, we are already living in the after. Much like the internet or social media reshaped entire generations, AI has irrevocably changed our landscape. I've started calling this a modern renaissance, a moment of reinvention, reimagining, and radical possibility. And as we imagine and reimagine what's possible, we're also being asked to redefine what it means to be human. And with that comes a challenge unlike anything we've ever faced. I'm Steph Houle. I'm a designer by craft, and I've had the privilege of leading high-performing product design teams for nearly 8 years. My experience ranges from grassroots startups to the world's largest employer. I've worked across industries and on a multitude of products. From reinventing the omni-channel experiences for one of the world's largest and most iconic department stores, to leading product design for kids' learning products, both digital and tangible, across 5 edtech startups. I've optimized account and sign-in experiences for the world's largest retailer. And I've worked on one of the first collaborations with Spotify and Calvin Klein. From websites and apps to store experiences and physical products. Now, I grew up passionate about creativity and art. I was also very blessed to have a father that's innovative, forward-thinking, and obsessed with computers. He taught me about technology, and he also taught me about resilience. He first started working with computers in 1963, then became a full-time software developer in 1966, and over the course of his career has coded in over 70 languages. Recently, at the age of 80, he finally retired from full-time development. I am deeply grateful for the lessons he's taught me about persistence, curiosity, and reinvention, and I dedicate this talk to him. So now, let's take a quick temperature check of the room. So hands up. Raise your hand if you use AI weekly in your workflow. That's the next question. Daily. Now, raise your hand if you feel you're not using AI to its full potential. Okay. Now raise your hand if AI sometimes confuses the process, derails the output, or just gets a little lost. Okay. So, as we continue to see massive shifts in how we live and work, I'm present to how much leadership has taught me and how necessary those lessons are right now, especially the concept of self-leadership. So, what exactly does that mean? Self-leadership is the practice of directing your thoughts, emotions, decisions, and actions in alignment with your inner authority, values, and long-term vision, regardless of external pressures or uncertainty. It is the discipline of becoming the primary driver of your life, rather than letting circumstances or other people define your direction. It is debugging yourself so you can operate from clarity, not conditioning. Here's something I've noticed throughout my career. We are so often looking for someone to lead us, someone to tell us what to do, someone to delegate to, someone to take responsibility for us. And sometimes, today more than ever, we even look to AI to do that. But here's the truth. The greatest and most important leader you will ever meet is you. Self-leadership isn't something someone gives you. It's something you claim. There's a lot of conversation about the future of work. One truth feels increasingly clear to me. AI won't replace us. It can't. But those who lead themselves powerfully, those who can adapt, discern, direct themselves, they will outperform everyone else. This talk is not about AI tools. It's about the operating system inside you. Because AI is accelerating everything, and humans must upgrade too. Let's take a moment to tap into the human operating system. Every human behavior runs like a pattern. Every repeated emotional loop is old code. Every reactive response is a bug. And every moment of awareness is a chance to write a patch. Once you see it that way, your entire life becomes something you can work on from the inside out. Most of us, however, are running an old, outdated version. Let's call it Human OS 1.0. The one we inherited from childhood, culture, trauma, expectations, hustle culture, scarcity, survival mode, and just the sheer speed of the world today. And here's the key thing. I'm not talking about tools. This isn't productivity hacks. This isn't which app you use. This isn't whether you meditate or time block or use AI prompts. Those are tools. What I'm talking about here are your inner processes, the code running everything that you do. How you make decisions, how you respond to stress, how you choose direction, how you relate to yourself, how you hold your energy, your boundaries, your identity. That is your operating system. And if that layer is outdated, no tool you add on top will save you. Just like you can't install a new app on a broken OS and expect it to run smoothly, you can't add new habits, new goals, new AI workflows, or new ambitions on top of an inner system that's still running fear, reactivity, or self-doubt. So today I want to walk you through what I call the shift from Human OS 1.0 to the upgrade, Human OS 2.0. Think of OS 1.0 like the old legacy system. Lots of background noise, lots of inherited code, glitches, emotional bugs, decision loops, an operating system built for survival, not evolution. And OS 2.0 is the upgrade, where you operate from clarity, agency, intuition, responsibility, and full alignment. It's where the system runs clean. Your internal processes actually support the life that you want to build. The OS upgrade process is centered around cultivating our own inner awareness, making conscious choices from presence and clarity, taking aligned actions because actions equal results, and then we test and iterate. This is becoming more conscious to the program that our inner system is running on, and the power of our own personal awareness. In reflecting on self-leadership, I identified 7 core principles that leaders of the future must upgrade. Today, we're going to walk through them one by one. We're doing a live system update together, identify the pattern, install the patch, deploy the new behavior. By the end of this talk, my goal is for you to leave with a new internal architecture that supports you today, tomorrow, next year, and especially as the world and AI continues to accelerate. Darwin said it's not the strongest nor the smartest who survive, but the ones who are most responsive to change. So here are the 7 principles. These principles will give you that responsiveness, that inner adaptiveness, while still holding on to what makes you uniquely human. So, let's begin. The first principle is inner authority. It's about knowing who you are, what you value, and what you stand for. Without inner authority, you run on everyone else's expectations, timelines, projections, and fears. When you strengthen your inner authority, you stop outsourcing your power. The world becomes a lot clearer when you stop asking for permission. You define your internal North Star. When it comes to inner authority, a standard human operating system runs on external validation. We want acknowledgement. We want to be told we did a good job. We want to feel seen, approved, validated. External validation is natural, but OS 1.0 depends on it. Moving from external validation to internal validation means this. You shift from seeking approval to trusting your center. This is the foundation of self-leadership. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade your OS to be centered around internal validation. Consider one area where you are running the old OS and try taking on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. Now take a moment and consider, where might you be giving away your inner authority? And take a moment to reflect on why. One of the biggest barriers to inner authority is what I call the paradox of experience. That loop where you can't get experience because you don't already have experience. We've all been inside that trap. Early in my career, I wanted to step into leadership. I knew I had the intuition, the communication, the vision, but I didn't have the formal title yet. So when a managerial role opened on my team, I applied. I remember sitting in the first interview, excited, committed, ready. And when the feedback came back, it was blunt. You're the least qualified candidate. You don't have the formal leadership experience, and that's a requirement for the role. It stung. Not because they were wrong on paper, but because internally I knew I could do the job. And this is where inner authority matters the most. You don't wait for someone to grant you the title. You lead from where you are. So instead of shrinking, I kept showing up as a leader anyway. I took initiative, I mentored teammates, I elevated the work. I stepped into leadership in the ways I could, without permission, without a title, without external validation. 6 months later, that same position opened again. My responsibilities hadn't drastically changed. My resume wasn't suddenly stacked with new achievements, but one thing was different. My manager had a new manager, a fresh set of eyes, a different kind of leader. I applied again, and this time, after the second interview, the same manager who once called me the least qualified said, "We think you're the best candidate." The least qualified to the best candidate in 6 months, not because the job changed, not because I changed dramatically, but because I had been leading myself the entire time. That's inner authority. You claim who you are becoming before the world catches up. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for the perfect resume. You don't wait for someone to tell you you're ready. You lead internally. And eventually, life rearranges around that truth. Discernment is self-leadership principle number 2. Discernment is an inner sense, the ability to pause, feel, and choose consciously. It's the filter that separates signal from noise in your choices, your energy, and your direction. Today, we don't have an information problem. We have a discernment problem. Over a decade ago, the CEO of Google said something that stuck with me, that we generate as much information from the dawn of civilization up to the year 2003 each day. That's approximately 5 exabytes of information. Today, We generate 80 times that every single day. Discernment is no longer optional. It's a survival skill. In OS 1.0, we react from fear, urgency, or triggers. We say yes too fast. We make decisions from the nervous system, not our wisdom. Moving from reactive to discernment means you shift from speed to clarity, from reactivity to alignment, from noise to truth. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade to the discernment operating system. Consider one area where you are running the old operating system and try taking on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. Having discernment means leaving space for the unknown, space for the things we can't yet see, name, or imagine. It means being able to sense and feel, not just analyze and react. Discernment is how we solve problems without jumping straight into prescriptive solutions. It's how we avoid building the thing that sounds right and instead discover the thing that is right. In product, that is empathy. It's talking to customers and users not to confirm our assumptions, but to understand what's actually working and what's not. Not what they say they want, but what the data, the behavior, and the experience tells us they truly need. And at its core, discernment is the ability to keep asking the important questions, to pause before deciding, to stay curious instead of certain, and to let the right path reveal itself rather than forcing the wrong one. Every great quest starts with a question. A question is a compass. A question is a doorway. A question is a steering wheel that turns us toward clarity, truth, and direction. In life, just like in prompting, the quality of our questions determine the quality of our outcomes. If you ask small questions, you get small answers. If you ask reactive questions, you get reactive decisions. If you ask fear-based questions, the path narrows. But when you ask intentional, discerning, spacious questions, questions rooted in truth rather than urgency, the entire direction of your life changes. Questions control the conversation, not just with AI, but with yourself. The internal conversation you're having is shaping your reality more than anything else. Just like prompting, a vague question leads to vague answers. A misaligned question leads to misaligned actions. A rushed question leads to rushed responses. Discernment begins with the questions you choose to ask. This is the heart of the discernment operating system, choosing questions that bring you back to your truth, not away from it. We ran into this at Walmart when there was a desire to recreate the Netflix-style login experience, one shared sign-in for the whole family. Netflix uses joint sign-on because the primary experience is browsing together. But Walmart's identity strategy was moving in the opposite direction, towards the individual accounts, personalized recommendations, and better algorithms. Meanwhile, a family sharing product requirements doc came through saying, replicate the Netflix joint login experience. And this is where discernment matters. Shopping isn't streaming. The modality is completely different. Purchasing, returns, order history, payments, these are personal, not shared. So we had to step back and ask a better question. What problem are we actually trying to solve, and for whom? Once we reframed the question, the entire direction changed. We realized the goal wasn't copy Netflix. The goal was make it effortless for families to shop together while still preserving identity, preferences, and security. The team refocused and is still in flight on a more meaningful solution. Asking the right question at a crucial moment in the process prevented us from brilliantly solving the wrong problem. Principle number 3 of self-leadership is responsibility. Responsibility is the choice to meet your life with awareness rather than autopilot, to become the creator, not the reactor. When it comes to responsibility, a standard human operating system runs on victim logic. Life is happening to you. You blame circumstances, systems, timelines, people. Patterns repeat because you can't see your part in them. Moving from victim logic to creator logic means shifting to life is happening through me. What is this showing me? What part is mine to lead? This is how you reclaim your power. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade to the creator logic operating system. Consider one area where you're running the old OS and try taking on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. Nearly a decade ago, I left a stable job after 6 months to take on a new challenge, leading digital design at a boutique agency in Midtown Manhattan. About 6 months in, near the end of a random workday, my desk phone rang. Bring, bring, bring. One of the partners said, "Can you come into the conference room?" When I walked in, she was holding a folder. "Today's your last day." The business was contracting. Several roles were being eliminated, mine included. I remember packing my belongings into garbage bags, walking up Fifth Avenue past the rush hour hustle of people heading home, wondering, what am I gonna do? How did this happen to me? Why me? And in that moment, I had a choice. I could collapse into victim logic. Life is happening to me. I'm powerless. I can't believe this is happening. Or I could shift into creator logic, not pretending it didn't hurt, but choosing to ask a different question. What is this showing me? What is possible now? And somewhere on that walk, with 2 garbage bags cutting into my fingers, that shift happened. I realized the truth that has shaped every chapter of my life since. When nothing is certain, anything is possible. I leaned on my community. I began volunteering as a design director with the Trevor Project, an organization doing life-saving work for LGBTQ youth. A connection there introduced me to the head of production at Calvin Klein. And weeks later, I found myself in their ad studio designing global campaigns, including a collaboration between Calvin Klein and Spotify. The role I landed was more creative, more aligned, and more expansive than the job that had let me go. And that moment taught me something essential about responsibility. Responsibility isn't about blame. It's about reclaiming authorship. It's the shift from why is this happening to me to how do I meet this moment as the creator of my life. That single upgrade from victim logic to creator logic changed my trajectory. And it's available to all of us in every challenge, every disruption, every uncertain moment. Now that we're grounded into inner authority, discernment, and responsibility, we move into a principle that determines the quality of all of your leadership: emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is guiding your nervous system. So your emotions inform you, but don't control you. It's the ability to stay present with your experience without being hijacked by it. It's leading your internal state so you can lead your life. In OS 1.0, your nervous system becomes the runtime environment. And when it overloads, every function misfires. In overwhelm, you spiral, freeze, shut down, avoid, lose clarity, lose presence. Your nervous system is running the show. Moving from overwhelm to regulated means you can feel without flooding, you stay connected instead of collapsing, your system stays online even under load. Breath, body, and awareness lead the moment. Regulation becomes your superpower. It's a shift from emotional hijack to emotional leadership. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade to regulated operating system. Consider one area where you're running the old OS. and try taking on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about staying connected to yourself when your nervous system wants to spin out. And I'll be honest, some of the biggest emotional triggers of my career haven't come from big dramatic moments. They've come from something as simple as a Slack thread, a chain of emails, a misaligned comment from a stakeholder. Anyone who has worked in a fast-paced environment knows this dance. Maybe someone didn't understand your rationale. Maybe they insisted on moving forward with something that felt completely misaligned. Maybe timelines were unrealistic. On the design end, sometimes this means assets coming in late from a photo shoot, last-minute copy changes, and yet design is still has to deliver to development on time. In the early years of my career, those moments would set my nervous system off like a fire alarm. Fight, flight, flood, freeze. But the thing that changed everything for me, the thing that genuinely saved my career, was learning to pause before responding. Sometimes that meant drafting the email I really wanted to send, getting every ounce of frustration out, and then not sending it. Instead, I'd go outside, walk around the block, breathe real air, look at the sky, put my body back into a state that could think clearly. When I returned, I'd rewrite the email, then compare the two versions. The difference? Unbelievable. One came from a dysregulated nervous system trying to protect me. The other came from a grounded, clear, aligned version of myself. And over time, that pause became a discipline, a career-saving principle, something I now teach and mentor others in. Because emotional regulation isn't just about feeling calm. It's about protecting your relationships, your professional reputation, your leadership, and your future. A walk, a deep breath, a moment of stillness. These are not small acts. They are system updates. They bring you back into your body, back into clarity, back into leadership. I can't tell you how many times stepping outside before responding has protected opportunities, relationships, and outcomes. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do as a leader is simply pause, feel, regulate, respond from truth instead of reactivity. This is emotional regulation in the human OS, and it changes everything. So, we've reviewed 4 of the 7 principles, and I just want you to take a minute and turn to someone beside you and just reflect which principle is coming up most for you that resonates, and which upgrade might you install. Just going to take another 15 seconds and all right, just wrap up your last sentence. We'll have another opportunity to chat a few things through as well. All right, moving on to the 5th principle of self-leadership. It's integrity and self-trust. Your word becomes code. Your actions become deployment. Consistency builds trust, first internally, then outward. Jim Rohn said, anything that you believe in, study it, practice it, and teach it. That's the cycle of self-mastery. Integrity is what makes that cycle possible. Integrity isn't just moral, it's structural. It's the architecture of your life and craft. In OS 1.0, integrity leaks show up as breaking promises to yourself, starting and stopping, inconsistency, overwhelmed goals that no longer believe you. You become unreliable to yourself. Moving from integrity leaks to integrity means you become someone you can rely on. You move from inconsistency to alignment, from broken promises to self-trust as a superpower. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade to Integrity OS. Consider one area where you're running the old operating system and take on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. Nearly a decade ago, I started on an innovation team at Macy's in their flagship Herald Square location. Google had just changed ranking protocols, pushing websites towards responsive design. One day, my manager called me into his office and said, "Congratulations, you're going to design the first fully responsive asset on Macy's.com." I said, "Great." I walked back to my desk, sat down, looked over both shoulders, and Googled, what is a responsive asset? At the time, I didn't fully understand what it would entail, what exactly I had to deliver. But what I did have was figure it out energy. That mindset has gotten me further than any title ever could. The sixth principle is the one that unlocks your creativity, adaptability, and speed. Experimentation mindset. Experimentation is trusting the wisdom that comes from motion. It's learning by doing, testing, iterating, discovering, without self-judgment. Experimentation means progress over perfection. In OS 1.0, you wait for clarity, wait for certainty, wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing. Ideas live in your head, not in the world. Moving from perfectionism to experimentation means getting it done is more important than making it perfect. Being in motion is better than freezing in fear. Iteration is greater than hesitation. Data is more powerful than assumptions. It is the shift from holding back to leaning in. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade to Experimentation OS. Consider one area where you're running the old operating system and try taking on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. A few years ago, I was leading product design for a high-growth edtech startup with a mission, making learning to read accessible to all. When I joined the company, the founders asked me to find ways to increase the trial start rate for their main product, an app that helped children ages 2 to 6 learn English. Part of that mission was building an experimentation practice from the ground up alongside a small group of leaders and partners. Very early on, one of the leaders suggested that we redesign the homepage to look like our biggest competitor, a major player in the space. The logic was, they're successful, we should look like them. But I knew immediately that that wasn't the right direction. It was a prescriptive solution anchored in an assumption that their conversion advantage came from their website. Later, I learned the real story. They had significant funding and TV ad spend driving awareness. Their success wasn't coming from the hero section of their homepage. At the same time, I noticed something deeper happening with our audience. Parents, especially moms, weren't looking for a more crowded homepage or more features above the fold. They were carrying fear around screen time. They were asking themselves, is this good for my child? Should I feel guilty? Is this safe? And this is where experimentation became essential. Instead of copying a competitor, I created an experimentation practice that allowed us to test everything: messaging, emotional framing, storytelling, benefit hierarchy, and value clarity. By brainstorming ideas with a lead engineer, designer, product manager, and data scientist, and also partnering often with user research, we were able to test rapidly, iterate often, and learn constantly. We unearthed the real truth. Parents didn't need us to be louder. They didn't need us to speak to they needed us to speak to quality screen time, meaningful learning, and relief from guilt. Once we centered the message on screen time you can feel good about, everything changed. Conversion rates lifted, engagement increased, parents felt seen and understood. Experimentation helped us stop chasing the wrong problem and start designing for what families actually needed. Experimentation requires a new relationship with failure. Not fear, not avoidance, not self-judgment, but acceptance. Because in experimentation, failure is data. Failure is direction. Failure is signal. Failure is learning in motion. The more comfortable you become with failure, the more available you are to possibility. One of my favorite quotes on failure is from Michael Jordan. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 400 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. To experiment means you're willing to play, to try things, to be curious. When you stop taking failure personally, you unlock the freedom to iterate, to explore, to test, to evolve. You stop protecting your ego and start expanding your potential. The seventh and final principle is where human OS 2.0 becomes embodied: intuition as intelligence. Intuition is the deeper facing processing layer beneath logic, the pattern matching engine of your body, subconscious, and spirit. It's your secret API. In OS 1.0, you think you're a way out of everything. You overanalyze, overplan, loop, disconnect from your body's truth. Logic becomes a trap instead of a tool. Moving from analysis only to intuition as intelligence means you fuse logic and intuition. Your body becomes part of the decision engine. You operate with whole system knowing. You trust subtle signals, pings, and gut knowing. You let your inner data lead the way. Here are some ways to detect if you're running the old operating system. Notice if any of these behaviors come up for you. Now, here are a few ways to upgrade to Intuition Integration OS. Consider one area where you're running the old OS and try taking on one of these upgrades to find a new way of being. If there's one thing that separates us from machines, it's this: we feel. AI can compute, predict, replicate, synthesize, but it cannot feel. It cannot sense. It cannot experience the world through a body, but we can. And our feelings, contrary to what we're often taught, are not the problem. They are the guidance system of our deepest intelligence. Feelings are signals. They're data. They're direction. A tightening in the chest, a pull in the gut, a spark of excitement, a quiet contraction that says, something's off. This is the subtle language of intuition, the intelligence beneath the intellect, the wisdom beyond logic, the knowing that arrives before words. And we sharpen that intelligence through embodiment, by coming back into the body instead of living from the neck up. Feeling your feelings doesn't mean indulging them. It means listening to them, tracking them, letting them move through you instead of calcify inside of you. Because when we don't feel our feelings, we store them. And stored emotions become distortion, distorted decisions, distorted boundaries, distorted truth. But when we feel them, when we breathe into them, when we release them somatically through movement, breath, sound, stillness, what emerges is clarity, intuition, inner knowing, truth you can actually trust. This is why embodiment matters. This is why emotional attunement is a superpower. And this is why no machine will ever replace the fullness of human intelligence. AI can calculate, but only your body can sense. Only your heart can feel. Only your intuition can tell you the direction your life is asking you to go. Strengthening your intuition is simply reconnecting to yourself, to your body, your truth, and the guidance that has been there all along. So here are the 7 principles that we reviewed. Let's take 1 minute and turn to our partner and just share which ones most resonate for us. All right. Just take a moment to wrap up your last thought here. All right. So AI is extraordinary. It's the greatest amplification tool humanity has ever created. It can accelerate our workflows, expand our imagination, and give us leverage we've never had before. But even with all its brilliance, AI is still missing the one thing only you can bring: intuition, discernment, creativity, ethics, embodiment, lived experience, and soul. AI can analyze patterns, but you create the breakthroughs. AI can generate options, but you choose the direction. AI can support the work, but you define the meaning. The future won't belong to the people who try to compete with machines. It will belong to the humans who know how to partner with them. So take these principles, upgrade your inner operating system, and lead yourself powerfully. Because AI is amazing, but you are the operating system, and the world needs you online. And this is how we take on living life, not by default, but by design. We reclaim our inner authority, bring back presence, and we reconnect to ourselves, our power, and our truth. We take responsibility for what's possible and the true miracle it is to be alive and a creator on this planet. So what's one action you're going to take Take a moment to internally reflect. Consider it. Maybe jot it down. And remember, the greatest leader is you. Thank you, everyone.